Welcome to Communication for Business, which is a part of the BCA second semester program. So in this series of videos, we will be going through different aspects about business communication and different tools used in business communication today. First, we will look at effective communication, what it entails, and different aspects about effective communication. My name is Rajendra Singh, and I will be going through effective communication skills course under the BCA second semester, that is English second, as well as I'll be going through the short stories under the program and also critical reasoning. So, welcome, and let's go through effective communication in today's video. So, what is effective communication? So when a message is sent by a sender and is received by a receiver and it is understood as intended by the sender, then the communication is effective. So here the emphasis is on the intended message as sent by the sender. So if there's any kind of interference or if the message is misunderstood, then the communication fails to be effective. There's also another term called efficient communication, which is more geared towards the efficient use of resources used in communication. And so in today's business, you will probably hear you'll probably be hearing efficient communication. So in that, like for example, what could be the resources? Time, money? All right, so if a message, like for a message to be sent from sender to receiver, how can it be sent more efficiently? Maybe, in a reduced cost, maybe in less amount of time. So that will be focus. Here, the focus is on the to make sure that the message as sent by the sender is received exactly by the receiver. So what are some of the characteristics of business communication? So first of all, it has to be formal because in a business, for example, in a business situation, it is a formal situation. We don't use like informal or even semi-formal. So this has to do with formality, right? So it has to be formal. That is suitable for example, for a business meeting or business email. All right, you'd not be writing an email like you would write to your family member or your best friend. You have to follow some kind of norms, and the words that you choose should be more formal. All right. So another characteristic is precise, that is to the point, right? So what message you want to deliver as part of the communication, it has to be to the point. That means don't beat around the bush. Don't waste time with unnecessary words, unnecessary things. Let's get to the point. Now, something similar would be concise, being concise. That is not being wordy, right? Not using too much word or not using too much time, right? So if you could convey a message using, for example, 50 words, why would you waste 200 words to write the same email, right? So in business communication, we give emphasis to conciseness as well. Clarity, so your message has to be clear, so it can be understood by your receiver. Any kind of words, vague words, or words with maybe double meaning should be avoided. Business communication should be polite or respectful as well. It, um, So another point is being assertive. Here, assertiveness is being direct, not being very bossy or not being very indirect as well. So if you have a message, you say it as it is, all right, without bending or without assuming that the other person might understand what we want to say. It's just be more assertive in business communication. Another point is being accountable. So your words, that whether you say it or type it, you have to own your words. So you have to be accountable. And business communication entails that. So another point is audience centered. So we should always be audience centered, no matter if it's like we are delivering some kind of business presentation or we are in a meeting. We have to tailor our language our how we say it according to our audience. So this has to do with having more maximum effectiveness of our message. The last point here is follow accepted conventions or rule. So whenever you work in a company, for example, you follow the rules as directed by the company, whether it be like how you write an email, for example, how you address. So it's best we follow the generally accepted rules. In business communication, we focus on simplicity. So we don't try to write in kind of flowery, using flowery words or making our language so complex that the audience or the reader might have a difficult time understanding it. So make it simple, and your message will be, when delivered, will be understood as you intended. Whereas if you for example, if you go to a website and where a website would retype it for you using more complex vocabulary, sometimes that can have an unintended consequences. So you have to watch out for that. All right, even if you're speaking or communicating with a native English speaker, for example. So what message you intended, sometimes you don't know how a website or some kind of online tool would translate that into something that may be subtly different, maybe, or completely different, that can have some kind of undesirable consequences. So you have to watch out for that. So also focus on meaning, what meaning you want to convey through your message. So be focused on that. Let that be the central focus when you are communicating. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, focus on your audience and make sure you adjust your language and adjust uh, your message maybe as according to your audience. And also think about the context or occasion, because based on context, the same message can have different interpretation or different meaning. So you have to watch out on the context. And another point it says here is consistency. So be consistent so you can be predictable in a sense. All right. So when you send a message a certain way and next week you send a message completely differently, the receiver might be confused. So no confusions in business communication. And so focus on solution. That is, focus on what is the meaning or what is the objective of the message. So focus on that as well. What are you trying to solve? So when we are communicating in business context, for example, it should have an objective. So focus on that. So what about the things that we should watch out for? So there are a few things here that we need to be careful. For example, the overuse of I. Sometimes I, when we use it too many times, may not sound that good. That doesn't mean you don't use I. You can certainly use that, but it's just watch out for not overusing it. Uh, Next, technical terms or any specialized terms that are understood by people working in that field. If you use those terms in, for example, in a different situation where people don't know those jargons, those technical terms, so your message may be confused or confusing. Same thing would be vague acronyms, right? An acronym, for example, there could be different acronyms, or same acronym can have like different, for example, long forms. So make sure that your audience knows that. For example, we have different computer terms like RAM, ROM, and all that. If you're talking to someone, a layman person who doesn't know much about computer, and if you're using these terms, surely you would confuse that person. All right, and avoid using any kind of fancy words like flowery words, because rather than making the message understandable, you might end up really confusing your audience. And same thing with figurative language or expressions with more than one meaning. So figurative language They have like a denotative meaning, the the meaning that you get from reading the words, and you also have connotative meaning, the implied meaning. All right. So in business communication, we don't use a figurative language because that can make the, the message confusing. Also, avoid using passive voice, but that doesn't mean like you should completely avoid it. There may be instances where you might have to use passive voice, where, for example, you focus more on the action or the what is acted upon rather than the doer of the subject. But in majority of cases, you will be using active voice in business communication. Also, avoid being too long in with your message. So being wordy, for example, just don't do that because first of all, people don't have a lot of time, and especially people who are very busy. If you're sending message to them, you have to be careful about not being too long because first of all, they may not have, like they may be uh, they may have too many emails in their inbox, and they may not be spending too much time just going through your email. Or even if you're calling, for example, that person might be busy and waiting for you to actually end the conversation. And if you're just going and going, um, that person may not want to actually be in that conversation. So just uh, just uh, relay the message, and that should be the end of it. And also avoid the clever lines or cliches or expressions that are overused. So sometimes uh, we may want to be like we may want to be seen as hip or as funny, but sometimes it may not have that outcome. Also, same thing, avoid using confusing terms, and also very important thing here, avoid plagiarism in business communication. Watch out for plagiarism. All right. For example, if you're writing a report on some kind of findings as part of your some kind of research, or it could be that you're presenting a paper, or I mean presenting some kind of your for example, a business meeting. If everything you have is copied from somewhere, that may look bad upon you, especially when it's found out. So do some extra effort, and so that you not only understand the presentation, so that you can give your presentation, uh, but you avoid any kind of situation where you would not look good. Also avoid any unnecessary delays. So if you can send, for example, reply message immediately, don't wait for 3 days. All right. So you may feel like, okay, for example, it's not really urgent, but what if it is urgent to the other person? So be don't have unnecessary delays. Um, and sometimes we actually forget. Like for example, you'd say like I'm gonna reply to this message tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll have like maybe 30 emails waiting for you, or maybe more. And also being mechanical. So for any new issues, try to do some legwork, some research, rather than using the same template, for example, using the same the same expressions. Uh, so that can also be helpful. Uh, so now in business communication, so what here are some examples of uh, what you shouldn't do and what you should do in, for example, because the expressions may be something that we used to use maybe 20, 30 years ago, but we don't use it anymore. So we want to use like more modern language in today's communication. So, for example, instead of saying, please see that an inquiry is conducted to determine the reason, so simply you could say, please find out the reason. So instead of maybe using like 10, 12 words, you could just say the same message in like five words. Another example, we express our regret at being unable to fulfill your order on this occasion with our customary promptness. So that's may seem like a little overtly respectful. We don't need that either. Be respectful, but not too much. So you can say, like, for example, we are sorry we cannot meet your present order immediately, or even you can maybe say in a fewer words than that. Another example, we are writing reference to, we are writing about, reference to. The information is needed in connection with, the information is needed for. Another example, we shall be in position to, will be able to. In the course of the next few days, during the next few days, he was granted a loan of £50 sterling by us. He granted him, or we granted him, a loan of £50 sterling. Payment of this account will be made by Watson next month. Watson will pay their account next month. So being direct, all right, and also be using active voice instead of passive voice. So here are some more examples. You can have a look. So most of these have been taken from your textbook. So your textbook is Communication for Business, a Practical Approach. So I'm using fourth edition. The author of the textbook is Shirley Taylor. So this much for today, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.